Start recording. Okay, well, I hope that folks in general are doing well and that the slight warm up in weather is here. I think I'm doing it right. Is making it a little bit easier to go outside, so and get out and do things. Okay, so let's see. I'm gonna screen share right now. Why do they redid Zoom? I can never find the button anymore. All right, so just a quick refresh of what we have seen. We've now done the first 3 chapters of Hoshea. The first was very short, right, with the commandment to take the Eshet Zinunim, the woman of harlotry, and children, and have children with them and give them these horrible names. Chapter 2 was a prophecy, just shifted gears and was a prophecy about how bad things are bad that are happening, but they will get better, but they're also bad, and that classic back and forth that characterizes a lot of this type of literature. And then we saw that chapter 3 was a shorter chapter, also quite strange, that now he's commanded to go befriend a woman, love a woman, right? And then basically leave her at home and ignore her, which, as we saw with the story of Tamar, is actually a really bad thing to do. That's supposed to be another mirror for the Israelites. So, okay, interesting book so far, I guess I would say, right? And so, this, like I said last time, this seems to constitute arguably like not the first half, because they're not equal, but that would have completed the first section of the book. And that now we move into chapter 4, which is 19 verses. So my hope is we can do it all today, which changes tones again. And so the chapter opens with a command that we have to pay close attention to. Shim'u dvar Hashem b'nei Yisrael, ki riv laHashem im yoshvei haaretz, ki ein emet ve'ein chesed ve'ein da'at Elohim ba'aretz. Okay, so Shim'u, right, from the word Shema, hear the word of God, O people Israel, ki riv laHashem, God has a case. I think case is a bit generous. I think it really connotes more of like a fight against the people of this land, because there's no honesty, there's no emet, there's no chesed, there's no kindness, and no da'at Elohim. Don't know why it translates here as devotion to God. It really means like knowledge of God, right? There's none of this here. Now, this general idea is certainly one that we have seen before. But what we have to note in this verse is the first word, which, even though Shema, listen, translated Shema Israel, hear, O Israel, it's a word that we're used to seeing, but actually is not that common as a command, as an attention command in the Torah and in Tanakh. And in fact, in the Torah, when it is used, it only appears a few times, but it's used actually in a negative sense. In other words, come listen to me, because like I have to yell at you, right? Basically. Moshe, if anyone remembers, yells at the rebels, Shimu na hamorim, right? Listen to me, you rebels, right? He yells at Israel. So if we want someone to listen for a good reason, or because the message is good, we use a different word. So we know already, Shimu dvar Hashem, it's going to be something bad.
Interesting.
Okay.
Israel is bad.
Yeah. All right. Alo v'chachish v'ratzoach v'ganov v'na'of paratzu v'damim nagalu. So what has happened? False swearing, dishonesty, murder, and theft and adultery are rife, and damim b'damim nagalu. Crime follows upon crime. This is where I really want to hear if anyone has a different translation for any of this.
Yeah, blood.
Blood. You do have blood. Okay, great.
Blood breaks all bounds, and blood touches blood.
Great. Actually, yeah, that's exactly. Sorry, what was the first part about breaking bounds?
You want to raise your hand?
So after committing adultery, they say they break all bounds, and that would be paratsu, I guess, right?
Okay.
And then blood touches blood. Damim b'damim naga'ah, which literally means blood touches blood.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, much better translation. Yes, Bruce, is that you?
Yes.
Great.
Not translation, but what interests me is it's crime follows upon crime, which seems secular, as opposed to sin follows upon sin.
Ah. Okay, so say more.
Well, the things mentioned above are all sins, and I'm surprised it's not used in that context. They're crimes against God. When it says crime follows upon crime or blood follows upon blood, it sounds like a crime against other men, mankind, as opposed to a crime against God, which those things are, all the ones listed are listed as negative mitzvot, and they are sins against God.
Interesting. Okay, that's very interesting. So here, so the Da'at Mikra, the Mosada of Cook. So he actually quotes the Ibn Ezra here, who says, "Demei harug echad nogim b'demei harug acher." Right, the blood of someone who was killed, one guy who was killed, touches the blood of another person who was killed. Right, I guess connoting there are so many bodies there in close proximity. So you're totally right. It does actually completely sound like it is crimes against God. What they do point out is that in the Hebrew, a lot of these correspond to the Ten Commandments. Lotin af, right? Lotig nov, and those are ones that actually person to person. So yeah, there's a mix here of crimes against God and crimes also against other people. Anyone else have any great comments or interesting things going on? Okay. All right. Next, al kain te'eval ha'aretz ve'umlal kol yoshev ba v'chayat hasadeh uve'of hashamayim ve'gam degei hayam ye'asefu. For that the earth is withered, everything that dwells on it languishes. Beasts of the field and birds of the sky, even the fish of the sea perish. Certainly. Oh yes, Bruce, go ahead.
Oh,
No, April, sorry.
No, not Bruce or April. I forgot to lower our hand.
Oh, no problem. It showed up again new. That's strange. Okay.
Just one question.
Yeah.
Rather than that this is happening, in my translation, it will happen.
Yeah, me too.
So
Yeah.
that is a difference.
Mine also.
That's a warning versus a statement of something that already took place.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's how certainly how he sees it in my book also. Points out that he here makes an interesting comment that al kain te'eval, we might look at that word and see avelut, right? Mourning. He says it's not a language of tsar and avelut, of pain and mourning. Here it was instead what it means, techerav v'tishomem ha'aretz, the land is going to be destroyed and desolate. But yes, it definitely is in the future tense. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know why they would have done that.
Yeah, the evil is in the future tense.
Yeah.
It's a punishment for all those sins that they did up front.
Yeah.
And my translation is in the future tense as well.
Yeah, I wonder, does anyone else have a translation in the past tense, or is it just this JPS?
I also have it in the future tense with I use the shall. Therefore, shall the land mourn.
Very interesting. Huh. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a huge difference between that, right? Is this something that's already happened, it's unavoidable, or is it something that will happen and naturally could be avoided?
Right, because if it's going to be in the future, there's still something you can do about it.
Exactly, right. Yeah. Okay, let's see if that continues. Ach ish al yarev ve'al yochach ish ve'amcha kimrive kohen. All right, so absolutely no one shall rebuke, none shall protest. For this your people has a grievance against you, O priest. Now, there are a number of verses in this chapter that don't really make sense, right? And so we have to, use our tricks to try to make them make sense. So this is one of them. Ach ish al yarev al yochach ish v'amcha kimrive kohen. Right? So I think it's interesting they translated it as no one shall rebuke, because we opened with Ki riv la Hashem, God has a case, right? But this is the same word of riv, or fight. So no one shall rebuke, none shall protest. Please jump in if you have another translation.
Yeah, I have strive. Let no man strive, let no man reprove. So they're talking about fighting.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
I,
have, go ahead.
I am let no one contend, let no one reprimand, yet your people contends with the Kohen. So again, it's what's happening. It's warning, more of a warning. Don't let that happen. Rather than it like it has, or it's the only thing that could happen.
Great. Yeah. Okay, so let's hold this Kohen thing and we'll see how else other like leaders play into this. V'chashalta hayom v'chashal gam navi imcha laila v'damiti imecha. Okay, so you shall stumble by day, and by night a prophet shall stumble as well, or at least, okay. V'damiti imecha, and I will destroy your kindred. Please tell me someone has a more literal translation here.
I will silence your
It's
mother.
your mother.
Great. Okay. Yes, your mother, right? Damiti imecha, your mother, not your kindred, right? So you're going to stumble by day. At night, the prophet will stumble with you, and I'm going to destroy your mother. So what is going on with this verse?
Well, we have as silence your mother, not destroy your mother.
I have silence.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah.
And mine says, and the false prophet who is with you will also stumble, as if by night.
Yeah.
As if by night. Okay, great. Yeah, it's interesting here. Mosada Rav Kut says Damiti is achrit, right? Like I will cut down, meaning they side with the JPS.
I have a comment. According to Ibn Ezra and Radak, the Hebrew Damiti is to be translated cut off.
Okay, great. Yeah, achrit. Yeah, okay.
How does it get that translation? Because that's a common word, Terry.
Yeah, that's a good question. Where did I had it here. Here, I mean, he just quotes psukim from Shmuel Aleph that where it means the same thing. It's a good question. Right, so we see the leaders here. There's the Kohen, there's the Navi, and then of course the role of the mother. Like, what is the role of the mother here?
It's here. I have the note that Israel's mother is a metaphor for the nation. Individuals will be exiled and the congregation of Israel will cease to exist. And that's from Radak.
Okay. I see. That's interesting. Okay. All right. So let's just look at some more and then we can kind of talk about it as a whole. Nidmu ami mibli hadat ki ata hadat ma'asta ve'em ascha mikahen li v'tishkach Torah Elohecha eshkach banecha gam ani. All right, a lot going on here. My people is destroyed for the lack of devotion, right? Nidmu, same word again as just right, v'damiti mecha. So my people are destroyed, silenced, whatever. Mibli da'at, for the lack of devotion. Does anyone have a different translation? Lack of knowledge?
Knowledge.
Yeah, that is knowledge.
I know. I don't know what's going on with JPS here.
Right.
Yeah. Bikiyata hadat ma'asta, right? Because you rejected this knowledge. And therefore, va'em ascha mikahen, I will reject you as my priest. Leave v'tishkach Torah Elohecha, right? And I'm going to make you. Can someone help me with the second half of this? Thera, what do you have for translation?
As you have forgotten the Torah of your God, I too will forget your children.
Yeah, I have the same translation as that.
Yeah, so do I.
Okay, great. Yeah, I like that better. It's more simple, right? Therefore, I will forget your children. So you first forgot me, I will forget your kids.
And there's also a reference from Radak that the children refer to the priesthood.
Yeah, that's what they say here also. Banecha hem bnei kohanim, ki hakuna overet b'Yerusha mi'av labein, right? Because it's inherited. Yeah, good.
And
Right.
also, they use you've forgotten the Torah of your God.
Say that one more time, Janet.
I have you have my people has been eliminated for lack of knowledge, for you have spurned knowledge, and I will spurn you, serving me. And as you have forgotten the Torah of your God, I too will forget your children. And children referring to the nation of Israel, basically.
Okay.
Yes, the reason they referring to the Kohen as the children of the Kohen is because the third line identifies the Kohen. So they assume that the son and the children are also are just descendant of the Kohen, but you can read it widely.
So yeah, so it's interesting. Thank you, because thinking about like why are we focusing on this Kohen? It could be that this is undoing the Kehuna, which of course represents the temple and praying to God. It's also God says to us directly, you are a Mamlechet Kohanim and a Goy Kadosh, right? And of course we don't know how to translate Mamlechet Kohanim, what does it exactly mean, but a kingdom of priests, right? So is this undoing our leadership structure, our religious leadership structure, or is this undoing the very identity of who we are as a people? All right. So here it continues. Kerubam kein chatu li kevodam bekalon amir. The more they increased, the more they sinned against me. I will change their dignity to dishonor. Anyone have anything on there?
Yes. Exchange their honor for shame.
Okay.
Exchange their honor for disgrace.
Okay. So nothing too crazy. Okay, so let's continue to 8. Chatat ami yochelu ve'el avonam yisu nafsho. So they feed on my people's purgation offerings. Chatat. And so they desire its iniquity. Anyone have anything else that's better translation for that?
I think they talking about the temple and the sacrifices at the temple. It relates also to the blood. When you sacrifice blood or an animal in a temple, you spray the blood in different places as part of the sacrifice. So I think, and I know that during that period of time, the temple was desecrated and they brought korbanot that weren't appropriate for that time. So that's why the last 3 psukim we read deal with the Kohanim and blood. It's not necessarily that they're killing each other, although there is reference to those sins as well. But this issue with the blood must be related to the temples and how they are bringing the sacrifices.
Beautiful. Oh, I love that. That's great. Yeah, and that totally ties in, because then this pasuk is saying chatata mi yochelu, right? The Kohanim, they eat the chatat offering, right? So someone sins, they bring a chatat, right? As a sacrifice. It's one of the forms of sacrifices, and the Kohanim get to eat it. And so what was this verse is saying is that therefore elavonam yisu nafsho, right? Their souls desire the sins of the people, meaning they want the people to keep sinning because then they get more food, right?
This isn't,
that they'll have more to eat, basically.
Exactly.
The Kohanim will get
But-
more.
this isn't the temple in Jerusalem, because he's talking to the northern kingdom, which had their own temple, I think, in Dan. So he's not talking about the temple. He's talking about the temples that the northern kingdom set up. I think they set two of them up, one in Dan and one
Beit El, yeah.
I think.
Beit El, she said.
What?
Beit El.
But yeah, so he's talking about those temples, right? Because he's talking northern kingdom.
Yeah, that's a great question.
I don't think it's specified.
But he's not talking to the kingdom of Judah.
He's talking to the Kohanim, so
The
I don't. Yeah, I don't know. It could be all three of them. I mean, the sin of bringing the wrong chatat or the wrong sacrifices.
Yeah, that's
Was that-
interesting.
I have a discussion on that. I'm reading from a text that on the section that says they eat up the sin of my people, or they feed on the sins offering of my people. They is interpreted as the priests or the Kohen. And so they did this by enjoying the benefits of the people's things, such as taking bribes and eating the sin offerings. So the priest actually relished Israel's wickedness.
Yeah. Which is also a problem in general in the system. We probably should like incentivize the Kohanim wanting people to sin. Yeah, okay. So therefore, says God, v'haya cha'am ka'kohen ufakadati alav drachav uma'alalav ashiv lo. Therefore, the people shall fare like the priests. I will punish it for its conduct. I will requite it for its deeds. Yeah. Okay. Anyone? Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that closes the circle. So the few psukim focused on the Kohanim, but he says basically the Kohanim are not the only ones that are going to suffer, but the people are going to suffer as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, it is very interesting, this image of like the Kohanim and the people being sort of a circular relationship, and the Kohanim are physically eating their sins, right? And I mean, it's I find the imagery very interesting. Okay, so what I saw in one of the articles I was reading to prepare for today is that, so this is a 19 verse chapter, right? Which means that verse 10, right, is the center of it. And it serves kind of as the anchor pasuk to connect the first 9 verses and then the last 9 verses. So that's what we should have in mind when we look at verse 10. Ve'achlu ve'lo yisba'u hiznu ve'lo yifrotzu ki et Hashem azvu lishmor. Also, the last word doesn't really cohere here, but let's first look at the rest. So ve'achlu ve'lo yisba'u, they will eat, but they won't be satisfied, right? They won't be full. Hiznu ve'lo yifrotzu, they shall swill I don't know what swill even means.
Here it says they will be promiscuous.
Yeah, exactly, right? I knew it was from it's all the same word.
Commit harlotry.
What does anyone have for yifrotzu?
Not proliferate.
Increase.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, and it's sort of the opposite of what happened in Egypt, right? It's
Yes.
the same beautiful word.
Yes. Exactly. Right? In Egypt, Paro tries to suppress them, but they just grow and grow and grow. Now, one of the curses or the predictions is you eat and you won't be satisfied. You will be promiscuous, right? You'll sleep around, but you won't reproduce, right? So I don't know why it says satisfied here. Yifrotzu, I mean, everyone I listened to or read said Yifrotzu comes from the like paratz, like to break forth, meaning to reproduce. You won't expand. Yeah.
So the second sentence, it says basically why this is happening. Mm-hmm. It's because they left God. They left keeping God's word. Azvu lishmor.
Ki et Hashem
There's
azvu
a lishmor.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, look, like here, the dot mikra says et Hashem azvu lishmor mi lishmor drachav, right? They abandoned God, didn't follow God's ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so that's our like anchor pasuk. Now 11 is also a little befuddling. Znut veyayin v'tirosh yikach lev. So you see here the way the JPS adds znut back into the previous pasuk as one way of understanding it. Here, no, they don't do that in my book. So znut, right? Promiscuity, the yain, but tirosh. Yain is more aged wine. Tirosh is new wine. Yikach lev, the heart will take. So one sec, I just lost my place. Okay, right. Now here, what my guy says is that, well, all this, this is all, if you think about worshiping Baal, right, the main the god at the time, right, the lowercase g, right, it's about reproduction, right, because it was a god of sex, especially with the partner Asherah, right, and so it was like a fertility. One of the ways they worship those gods is through sexual acts. And so here it's sort of the way that my commentary is understanding it, is that these are the things that you use for idolatry, right? And those will be rejected, right? Or they're associated and those will be rejected. Yeah. Anyone else have something different here?
I like the first line, the heart of tree wine and new wine. And the translation I have here is wine and new wine enslave the heart.
Yes, I like that a lot more.
Like
right, enslave the heart, take the heart. Beautiful. Yeah, I don't love the way JPS did this by trying to connect it all differently.
Will capture the heart.
Oh,
that's good.
Capture. Fresh wine will capture the heart.
Oh, beautiful.
Ruth,
Okay.
Ruth, I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm trying to image this. Is it they brought the Molech and the Asherah into the temple to pray, or they go to the they do their prayers, and then they also pray to these Elilim.
Yeah, I believe it was the second one that they would also go, to all the different places and worship there.
Because it seemed like it's a big effort to bring your sacrifice to these temples far away. So they're making, I don't quite get. They just seem to make a big effort to do both.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. If you look at the Book of Kings, after the story of Solomon, when this started happening, I think it's both. The temple itself was desecrated, but also the people in their own location started building the Baal, or creating their own
the Bamot,
yeah,
their Bamot.
Right.
Yeah, so it's not just one or the other, it's both. And they believe in what they were doing, despite the fact that
they're covering all bases.
Yeah.
Good way to say it.
No, they want to pray to the Baal, or
and I think also the altars, like for Baal to worship, I mean, if you're going to worship Baal with sexual acts, then they have to be built in a way to accommodate that, right? So so I don't think you could really just transfer that to your own space, is my understanding. I could be told.
Yeah, it doesn't mean their own houses. It could be their own village or their own
right
community.
Right, totally. Okay, so 12. Ami be'etzo yish'al umaklo yagid lo ki ruach zinunim hit'a v'yiznu mitachat Elohehem. My people, it consults its stick, its rod directs it. A lecherous impulse has made them go wrong, and they have strayed from submission to their God.
It's bad as straight, but I don't understand the rest of the sentence.
Anyone have a better and a different translation?
I have a different, I don't know if it's any better.
Okay, let's hear it.
My people asks of its wood,
Yeah,
and its rod relates to it, for a spirit of harlotry has misled them, and they have strayed from under their God.
I like that a lot
That part
more.
about straying, but the rest of it makes no sense to me.
Yes, I know. This is another one of the Pesukim. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, right? Look, so the beginning, Ami be'etzo yish'al, consults its stick. It really, of course, eitz means tree. And so there's some confusion here over what are we talking about exactly? And is this a tree? The tree was the related to the Asherah also. The fertility goddess was also connected to a tree. I'm sorry, I just totally lost my place in my book somehow. Where is this? Oh, no. Okay. Here, I mean, he says that it's one opinion is this is the Nechashim, the sorcerers, another is Rashi, right? That it's an image of a tree instead. But anyway, so they're following, it's certainly not God, right? And then Maklo Yagid Lo, of course, given the parshas that we're in, I mean, it's a different word, but who follows what their stick can do or rod?
So I have a comment that the wood refers to wooden idols.
Right. Okay. Beautiful. Great. Okay. Right. And then, I thought this, I guess maybe just because I'm thinking about it, because we're in the Parshiot of the Exodus right now, but, certainly what is the test when Moshe goes before Paro and the Chartumim, his, sorcerers is like, can I turn this stick into something else? Right. And they could, and it's only when they can't that they say, oh, this must be something else instead. Right. So I think maybe perhaps arguably there could be a connection there. Yeah, ruach. So ruach zinunim. The other translation that you read was so much better. But yes, of course, they've been led astray in all of these things.
But if we talk about them being foreign idols or wooden idols, why not use the term for idolatry? It seems, I don't know what it does mean, but it seems like it should not mean that, because that we have plenty of good words for idolatry.
It's a very good question. Maybe
to me, it's
I don't know.
It's like to me, there's an image that if you're consulting a piece of wood, it's like denigrating their idol god. It's like it's just a piece of wood. You're praying to a piece of wood. Why are you praying to a piece of wood? It makes no sense. I see it that way.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting because a makel your rod would also be wood. So it's two different forms of wood. Yeah.
Weren't rods used for divining, like for telling the future, didn't they? Isn't there such a thing as a divining rod for finding water?
Oh, I don't know.
Used in sorcery.
Yes, I've heard that before.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. All right. Al Roshei Harim Yizabechu ve'al Hagvaot Yikateru Tachat Alon Belivnei ve'ela Ki Tov Tzila Al Ken Tiznena Benotechem Echalotechem Tina Afna. All right. They sacrifice on the mountaintops and offer on the hills under oaks, poplars, and terebinths. Right. So lots of different trees whose shade is so pleasant. That is why their daughters fornicate. And their daughters-in-law commit adultery, fornicate, are promiscuous. Yeah. This one certainly at least makes sense.
God doesn't have a double standard for men and women in sexual conduct.
I know. I mean, like I said in the beginning, the male-female stuff in this book is not great. It's not good. Yeah. Okay. Lo efkod al bnotechem ki tiznena ve'al kalotechem ki tinaafna ki hem im hazonot yifaredu ve'im hakdeshot yezabechu ve'am lo yavin yilabet. I will not punish their daughters for fornicating, nor their daughters-in-law for committing adultery, for they themselves turn aside with whores and sacrifice with female consecrated workers. Workers, oh my God. Okay, sounds like the government. Okay, so basically, right, not going to punish the women though, because also it's the men who are engaging in this. I do, like we said, the sexual stuff, it certainly doesn't really match up with our thinking in 2025. But one thing I always appreciate in Jewish text is the acknowledgement is that if a woman is engaging in sexual licentiousness, that's only because there's a male partner and he doesn't get to just, disappear into the background. Okay. Right. And then the am lo yavin yilavet. And a people that is without sense must stumble. So it's a weird little addition here, or perhaps not. Perhaps it's just like a little summary. Does anyone have a different translation?
The people that does not understand will stumble.
Great. Yeah, that would probably Yavina as the most literal translation. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Okay, let's see if we can, we'll see if we can get through the last few. Im zoneh ata Yisrael, al yesham Yehuda, ve'al tavo'u hagilgal, ve'al ta'alu beit aven, ve'al tishavu chai Hashem. If you are a lecher, Israel, let not Judah incur guilt. Do not come to Gilgal. Do not make pilgrimages to Beit Aven, and do not swear by God. Right, so if this is who you are, then what? What is it saying? Anyone want to jump in?
We have, if you have turned astray, O Israel, let Judah not become guilty. Do not come to Gilgal. Do not ascend to Beit Aven, and do not swear falsely saying, as Hashem lives.
Right. So basically, like, stop engaging in all the ritual worship of God if you are in fact straying against God.
Right.
Right. Represent yourselves honestly. Yeah. I was just teaching this class last semester here about this time period. And one of the things I thought was so interesting is that they found gods in some of the Israelite homes that had both, Yud-K, Vav-K, the Yahweh name on them, and then also Asherah, right? Kind of imagining that, hey, we want to worship God and we also want to worship the idols. Let's just say that they're married, right? Which of course doesn't really work, but I thought was fascinating. I didn't really realize that that was actually part of the Israel culture at certain points, was this belief. Which is also, I think, very interesting. If you think about Shlomo taking all these wives later in life, right? There was this sense of like, maybe we can just have our cake and eat it too. And so part of what has to be disabused here is this notion that you can worship idols, right? And also come worship God. No, yes. Don't want that. Got to choose.
Yes.
What?
I'm just looking. Did I send this? Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So here we are. Kefara sorera sarar Yisrael ata yirem Hashem kekeves b'mirchav. Right, so Israel has balked like a stubborn cow. Therefore, God will graze him on the range like a sheep.
What?
Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Okay. Anyone got a good translation or comment here?
I have a comment.
Yeah, please.
It seems to me, if you wouldn't mind going up to the verses that say, do not come to Gilgal. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's preaching to the northern tribes, to Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't want Israel to contaminate the people in the south.
Well, it's a good
Okay.
question, right? Is why not? Right. Is this
Because-
Yeah, because
contamination or is this to be honest?
they are idolaters, and I don't know how many forms of idolatry there are, but the form of idolatry that he is preaching against is idolatry that encourages sexual licentiousness.
Okay.
Okay, so, and then in the earlier verses of the priests leading the people to sin. So now the whole nation of Israel, the 10 tribes, are corrupt. And so he's saying, don't come to the southern kingdom because you will contaminate them. That, I think, is the major message of those earlier verses.
Beautiful.
Okay.
That makes
Beautiful.
a lot of sense, except if you go to Arad in the desert in the West Bank near Engadi, there's remnants of a temple which was in the southern kingdom at about this era, which has the pillars, the stone pillars, both for Ashareth and for Yahweh, side by side. And the south clearly was worshiping them side by side. And I'm pretty certain it was the same time as Hosea, although I could be off a couple of years one way or the other. But it's in the desert near Engadi, a place called Arad.
Okay. Oh, very interesting. Right. So I like that.
Well-
There's different ways of understanding. Is this contamination or is this double standards, right? Yeah.
Well, clearly, idolatry had a tremendous attraction. And I remember one time when my husband was teaching a class on Talmud. I forget what the broader subject was, but I remember this verse where one Talmudic sage said, by way of explanation, people would pick up their skirts because men weren't wearing trousers yet, okay? So they would pick up their skirts to run and worship the idols. So great was the attraction. You have to wonder, well, what was the attraction? Well, sexual licentiousness, I would think, would be a big pull because our God does not like that at all.
Yeah.
But these other people, oh, they're having a good time. So
Yeah.
why not?
It could have just been bacon.
I didn't hear Bruce.
I said it could have just been bacon, and then April hit me.
Didn't some of those religions actually practice they had temple prostitutes?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I think that's why I translated the Kadesha up here as female consecrated workers.
Yeah. So I think that might have been an attraction for
Oh yeah.
for
Oh yeah.
some of the men.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay.
I was
So-
going to say
yeah.
there is a distinction being made here between the 10 tribes and the tribe of Judah.
South.
And it could be just the magnitude of the sin. Following up on the idea of contamination. So the 10 tribes were beyond repair, but Judah still had a chance of mending its way.
Yeah. Yeah.
That kind of ties up to the first or second chapter when the prophecy said the 10 tribe will disappear and Judah will be the one that stays.
Yeah. Yeah.
What other Nevi'im were at that time?
Oh, I had my chart. I don't have it with me right now, but
That would be important to know because Yeshayahu was complaining about loads of things. If it's contemporaneous with Yeshayahu.
yeah, no, I don't remember. I'll have to look it up. I don't remember.
I think Yeshayahu, Yirmiyahu, and even Yechezkel complain about similar sins.
Right, but
Right.
he's
But-
earlier than.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And
I
when
don't know.
Hoshea is definitely earlier than Yirmiyahu.
yeah, but Yeshayahu is earlier than Yirmiyahu.
Really
Well,
good.
Samuel was complaining about it.
Samuel,
Samuel too. They're about going off and straying with idols. I mean,
Yeah.
it's everywhere. As soon as
I know.
Yeah,
It's
and
so
that was before the split of the you
of the
know,
kingdoms, right?
of the kingdoms.
Yeah,
The split came after Solomon.
right.
Right.
definitely. Okay, I know we only have 4 verses or 3.5 because we didn't finish 16, but I want to try to keep to time, and also next week the chapter is a bit shorter. So hopefully we'll be able to get everything done. Thank you, everyone. This was a lot of fun. I love having a whole group of people because then you catch things like this text. These are so they're just a lot, and so it's great to study with other people. So we make sure that we catch everything. Yeah, I can't find my stop recording button, but anyway, I hope you. Oh, here we go.
Okay.
Thank you, Ruth.
Okay, I hope
Thank you,
everyone has a wonderful day and a wonderful
Thanks,
week.
Ruth.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, for women who are
Thanks,
interested,
Ruth.
tomorrow night, 8 p.m. at the Yeshiva or on Zoom, whatever you prefer.
And
Thank you.
I just want to tell you, I hope that things kind of sort out in a positive direction when they figure out what the repercussions